Hi, welcome back to Joe Blogs. In today's episode, I want to talk to you about the Chinese economy and specifically problems that are now being encountered amongst the workforce in China. Now, China has a population of over 1.4 billion people. It's actually the second largest country in the world now. It was recently overtaken by India. But 1.4 billion is still a lot of people. So you wouldn't imagine that China has any problems finding people to fill jobs. However, unfortunately for China, that isn't the situation, and they are now encountering some major problems, partly as a result of their retirement age, partly as a result of a falling birth rate due partially to the one-child policy that was introduced in the 1970s, and partly due to the fact that people are becoming better educated. So in today's video, we'll have a look at the population pyramid for China and have a look at exactly what's been happening. We'll then talk about life expectancy, the retirement age, how many people in China are attending university, and how many of those people are interested in working in the jobs that are on offer. And then finally today I'll wrap up with my summary as to what I think the major issues are for China, how they're going to address this, and what the implications are going to be on the Chinese economy. But before we get started on all of that, once again, I'd like to say thank you so much to everybody that sent me a YouTube super thanks or bought me a coffee. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And if you'd like to win this statue here, then please check out the video that I've posted right at the end of today's video, after the part that's designed to put a smile on your face. This chart is the current population pyramid for China. The scale on the left-hand side measures years in 5-year brackets, with 0 to 4 at the bottom, followed by 5 to 9, 10 to 14, and so on, all the way up to 100 plus at the top. The scale across the bottom measures percentages, with the 0 being located in the middle of the chart. The blue bars on the left-hand side show the percentage of the population that are male in each age category, and the red bars on the right-hand side show the percentage of the population that are female. The current population of China is just over 1.4 billion people, and there are a number of things to note about this population pyramid. The first is that the two largest age brackets are 50 to 54 and 55 to 59. 50 to 54-year-olds represent 8.6% of the Chinese population, or around 123 million people, and the split is an even 50-50 between male and female. The 55 to 59 age bracket represents 8% of the population, which equates to around 114 million, and the split is also even between male and female. Now, interestingly, you can see there's a marked reduction in the number of people in their 40s, and this was as a result of the single-child policy that was introduced by China in the late 1970s, as a result of the decision by the authorities that the country was becoming overpopulated. And the single-child policy that was rigidly enforced by the Chinese authorities, who imposed severe financial penalties against any family having more than one child, had two main implications for China. The first was obviously a reduction in the overall birth rate, but the second was a preference for Chinese families to have boys over girls. And you can see that as we move down the chart, the percentage of males becomes greater than the percentage of females. In the 45 to 49 age bracket, there are 3.5% male and 3.4% female. 40 to 44, it's 3.6 versus 3.4. 35 to 39, it's 4.1% versus 3.8%. 30 to 34, 4.1 versus 3.7. 25 to 29, 3.2% male and 2.8% female. 20 to 24, 3% male, 2.6% female. 15 to 19, 3.1% male, 2.6% female. 10 to 14, 3.4% male, 2.9% female. 5 to 9, 3.3% male, 2.9% female. And the 0 to 4, it's 2.3% male and 2% female. And as a result of this dynamic, there's now a mismatch between the number of males and females of a younger age. It's estimated that there are around 30 million more men than women, and that's obviously having a further knock-on impact onto the birth rate. And I thought it'd be useful to compare the population pyramid for China against two other countries: India, which recently overtook China as the largest country in the world by population, and the USA, which is the only economy in the world that is larger than China. If we start off by looking at how China compares to India, you can see the shape of the Indian population pyramid is very different. And what this pyramid shows is a classic shape of an economy that is becoming highly developed and more affluent. And as people become more educated, take on better jobs and are paid more, they tend to have smaller families and enjoy a higher standard of living. And you can see in the Indian population pyramid that the largest age group is 20 to 25. And in every single year thereafter, there is a reducing number of people representing a falling birth rate. And basically what this is showing is that over the last 20 years, India has become more developed, more affluent, and people are having less children. But one of the interesting things to note about the Indian chart is that there's also a strong preference for male children above female children. And if you look at the blue side of the chart, the percentage of males versus females is higher in every single age category from 0 to 54. So in exactly the same way as we talked about for China, there are now more males than females in India, and that's going to have a negative impact on the birth rate as well. Now, if we compare the Chinese pyramid to the USA's pyramid, you can see that the USA is far more rectangular. There is roughly an even number of people in all of the age categories between 15 and 64. However, as you can see from the bottom of the chart, the USA also has a declining birth rate, and there are a smaller number of people in each of the bottom three categories. And once again, this reflects the fact that people are becoming more affluent and they're enjoying better quality of life and tend to have less children. They want a smaller family size so that they can afford everything. This chart shows the current life expectancy for all of the countries in the G20. And as you can see, Japan is right at the top of this list with an average expectancy of 84.5 years, followed by Korea at 83.5, Australia at 83.3, Italy 82.8, Canada 82.6, France 82.3, Germany 80.9, the UK 80.7, and China comes in at number 8 with a life expectancy of 78.2, which interestingly is higher than Saudi Arabia at 76.9, the USA at 76.3, Turkey 76, Argentina 75.4, Brazil 72.8, Mexico 70.2, Russia 69.4, Indonesia 67.6, India 67.2, and South Africa comes bottom of the charts at 62.3. If we now look at the life expectancy split between male and female, you can see that in every country in the world, females live longer than males, with the highest life expectancy being in Japan at 87.6 years, followed by Korea 86.6, France 85.5, Australia 85.4, Italy 85.1, Canada 84.7, Germany 83.4, the UK 82.8, China comes in at number 9 on this list at 81.2, followed by the USA at 79.3, Turkey 79.1, Saudi Arabia 78.8, Argentina 78.7, Brazil 76, Mexico 74.9, Russia 74.8, Indonesia 69.7, India 68.9, and South Africa's bottom of this list as well at 65. And the long life expectancy of females in China is becoming a major issue, which we'll come on to talk about later in the video. If we now look at the life expectancy of males, Japan is once again top of the list at 81.5, followed by Australia 81.3, Canada, Italy and South Korea all at 80.6, France 79.3, the UK 78.7, Germany 78.5, Saudi Arabia 75.6. The life expectancy of males in China comes in at number 10 on this list at 75.5, followed by the USA at 73.5, Turkey 73, Argentina 72.2, Brazil 69.6, Mexico 66, India 65.8, Indonesia 65.5, Russia 64.2, and South Africa are bottom once again with 59.5. This table shows the current retirement age for women for all of the countries in the G20. And as you can see, China is right at the top of this list with a current retirement age of 55. Now, China is the second largest economy in the world, and if we compare that to the other major economies, the current retirement age for women in the USA, which is the biggest economy, is 66.5. So women in the USA are officially working for 11.5 years longer than they are in China. The third largest economy is Japan, where the official retirement age is 64, so 9 years longer than it is in China. The fourth and sixth largest economies in the world are Germany and the United Kingdom, where the retirement age for women is 66, which means that women are working for 11 years longer than they are in China. And the fifth largest economy is India, where the official retirement age is 60. And if we jump back to the population pyramid, you can start to see why problems are occurring in the Chinese economy. As you can see, the biggest single age category is 50 to 54, and 4.3% of the total population are women in this age bracket. So that represents around 61 million, and that group of workers are now reaching retirement age. And if you look at the two age groups above that, 55 to 59 and 60 to 64, they represent 4% and 2.7% of the population respectively, which is around 95 million women. And as we've just seen from the retirement ages of all the different countries in the world, in most of the large economies, those 95 million women would still be working, they wouldn't be retired. However, in China, 55 remains the retirement age for women. And if you now look down the chart, you can see that there is a tapering in terms of the number of women coming through into the workforce. And over the next 20 years, this is going to become more and more of an issue for China. As more people retire and less people enter the workforce, it's going to place a bigger burden on all of those workers. And the problem that China has is that the state will have to support all of these retired people, and that's going to cause major problems. This chart shows the current retirement age for men for all of the countries in the G20. And as you can see, the official retirement age for men in China is currently 60. The only country in the G20 that has a lower retirement age is Indonesia, where it's 58. And if we compare China to the other major world economies, the retirement age in the USA is 66.5, so 6.5 years longer. In Germany and the United Kingdom, it's 66, so 6 years longer. In Japan, it's 64, and in India, it's 60. And if we jump back to the population pyramid, you can see that the number of male workers aged between 55 and 59 represents 4% of the total population, which represents around 57 million people, and the 50 to 54 bracket is 4.3%, which represents around 61 million. So over the next 10 years, around 120 million male workers will be hitting retirement in China. And if you look at the bottom end of this chart, you can see that there aren't a sufficient number of people coming through in the lower age groups that are going to be able to replace those retirees. So this again is going to cause shortages in the workforce and put a further burden onto the state to be able to pay all of these pensioners. One of the other problems that China is currently facing are the high levels of education that its population are undertaking. And this chart shows the enrolment in tertiary education, so basically universities, in China between 1990 and 2022. In 1990, only 3.4% of the eligible age cohorts attended university. However, as you can see, over the last 32 years, there has been a huge increase in the percentage of students attending university. And in 2022, it hit a high of 59.6% of all of the eligible young people. Now, at face value, this looks like a great development, a big step forward for China. Because if more people are becoming higher educated, that's seen as being a good thing. But one of the problems that higher education brings is that people have higher expectations of the sort of job that they are prepared to take on. And China is now suffering in terms of its blue-collar workforce, people who work in factories who don't need to be university educated, because the 59.6% of people who are going to university are expecting to get graduate jobs. These highly educated people are looking for white-collar jobs in senior management. And this chart shows the available data for youth unemployment in China, dating back to March 2021. And as you can see, in March 21, 13.6% of young people were unemployed. However, over the last couple of years, that figure has increased dramatically. And the latest figures that have been made available for June 2023 show that the figure has increased to 21.3%. And if we compare that to the overall level of unemployment, which can be seen on this chart, you can see that it's currently running at 5%. So youth unemployment is currently more than 4 times higher than general unemployment. And the reason for that is that the educated youth don't want the jobs that are available. They don't want to work in factories doing monotonous tasks where they're not using their education. They want to go into senior management positions, and unfortunately for the youth in China, there simply aren't enough of those sort of positions available. And this is now causing a problem for China because China remains the manufacturing heartland for the whole of the world. It needs to have lots of workers working in all of its factories. So having a highly educated workforce doesn't really fit that brief in terms of filling all of those jobs. So what's the summary and conclusion today? Well, I wanted to post this video because China have been experiencing major problems over the last 12 months or so in their economy. Those problems started with the problems in the property sector. However, they've now seeped into all parts of the economy, partially due to the fact that the global economy is slowing down, so therefore there is less demand for China's manufactured products, and also because there's a slowdown in the Chinese economy itself. So this has been a double whammy from China's point of view. And the Chinese authorities are trying desperately to restart the economy. They're coming up with lots of different initiatives to try to get things back on track. As you saw from the population pyramid, the negative impact of the one child per family policy that was introduced in the 1970s and was kept in place until 2015 was that there was a reduction in the birth rate and therefore a reduction in the number of younger people in most age categories. So China now has an aging population. So that's a problem in itself. But in addition to that, China also has some of the lowest retirement ages in the whole world. Now, when China had a growing population, when it was expanding year on year back in the 40s, 50s and 60s, that retirement age may well have been suitable because you had lots of people coming through in the workforce, and so you didn't really need to worry about how many people were retired because there was always going to be a huge number of people to keep working, generating more taxes and therefore paying for all of those pensions. But when you've got an aging population, when your population pyramid reverses and starts to narrow down at the bottom, that's when you have real issues because you have a growing number of pensioners, people who are relying on the state for payments and support, and a shrinking number of workers. So that means that those shrinking number of workers are generating less income and less taxes. And so the government then has the problem of finding the cash to keep paying all of the pensioners. So the ageing and declining population would be a problem in itself, but it's been made worse by the fact that China has a differential retirement age between men and women, and that women are retiring at 55, which is the lowest level out of any country in the G20. And when you compare it to countries like the USA, Japan and Germany, it does seem crazy that it's so low, and have to think that the Chinese authorities may need to change that at some point in the near future, because otherwise tens of millions of women are going to be forced to retire every year and put additional pressure on the state. But in addition to those factors, we've also got something else coming through now that could be an even bigger problem. China has focused on education. It's trying to offer as many of its young people the chance to go to university. And as you saw from the data, more than 50% of all of the eligible students are now attending university. That is one of the highest percentage rates in the world. And the problem that that's now generating is that when all of those people come out of university, they expect to get graduate jobs. They want to go into management. They want to become high flyers, be well paid, work in an office and have a very nice life. But unfortunately, China doesn't have enough jobs to be able to offer all of those graduates those sort of opportunities. And it would rather that a lot of them went and worked in the factories. But these highly educated people do not want to work in factories. They don't want to take on blue-collar jobs that they see as being monotonous and not taxing their brains. And so we've now got a disconnect between the workforce and the available jobs. And as a result of that, the youth unemployment rates have gone sky high. They're now above 20%, which would be an epidemic if that was the official unemployment rate. But as we saw, the unemployment rate overall is around 5%. So when you combine all of these factors, you look at the fact that we've got an aging population, we've got a low retirement age, so a lot of people are being forced into retirement, who could probably work for another 15 or 20 years very easily. We've also got a reducing number of people in China because of the falling birth rate. We've got a higher percentage of the younger people becoming better educated and therefore not wanting to take on all of the manual jobs. And we've got an economy that is still highly dependent on manufacturing and factories. So it needs to keep filling all of those jobs. So the overall summary here is that the Chinese economy is already struggling. It's already in difficulty. It needs to fix itself to get back on track. And when you look at the dynamics of what's going on in the population and the workforce, it tells us that there are going to be bigger problems feeding through over the next 12 to 18 to 24 months and potentially over the next 5 to 10 years. And that these are very, very difficult to fix because China doesn't have a high rate of immigration. If this situation was occurring in the USA would have the opportunity of allowing more people to come into the country through immigration. However, China is not as attractive from an economic perspective and so doesn't really have the same draw as the USA does. So the overall summary of today's video is that the problems that are being experienced in China are likely to get worse, and it could get significantly worse in the medium to long term. So hopefully you've enjoyed today's video, you found it useful, informative and thought-provoking. If you've liked what I've said, then please give me a thumbs up. Thank you for watching this video all the way through to the end. Don't forget, if you'd like to win this dog, then please watch the video at the end of today's video. But here's something to put a smile on your face. I'm constantly being asked about the statues in the background of my video, and I've got some really exciting news for you. I've decided to give one of these away as a prize. This guy here, who's an electroplated resin statue of a balloon dog, and if you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll know that I once posted a video about a balloon dog called Squeaky. Now this is a really fantastic piece, really reflective, quite heavy, and would make a great addition to any home. And you can win this for just £1, which is the equivalent of around $1.30, so really affordable. So rather than buying me a coffee or sending me a YouTube super thanks, why don't you buy a ticket in the raffle that I've set up to win this? Now, to keep things above board, I've got an independent company to take the cash for me and do the draw. So everything will be entirely independent. I won't be picking the winner. It will be all at random. But I will post this to anybody in the world that wins it. There is a possibility that you might need to pay a little bit of import tax, depending on where you live and what the import duties are. But this is your opportunity to win a genuine Joe Bloggs sculpture. So buy yourself a ticket and good luck in the draw.